The galaxy was at war. Stars that had once twinkled peacefully were now silent witnesses to destruction. Entire fleets of the Varelians and the Thaler had clashed for decades. Worlds burned, millions died, and yet the war showed no signs of ending. Princess Kayla of the Varelians stood on the balcony of her palace, gazing at the war-torn horizon. She had seen enough death to last 1,000 lifetimes. Her green-blue eyes, sharp as a hawk's, reflected anger and exhaustion. The Varelians were known for their intelligence and precision in battle, but even they could not break the Thaler's stubborn resistance. Kayla's advisors entered her chamber, bows low, heads trembling. "Princess Kayla," said High Chancellor Vorin, "the Council has decided. You must go to Thalor Prime and negotiate peace." Kayla frowned. "Negotiate peace? With Thalor? After they slaughtered our fleet at Darson Ridge?" Vorin's face was solemn. "Yes, we have no choice. The war is draining our worlds. Our people suffer. The Thaler have made a strange request. They demand that the peace be sealed in an unusual way." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "Unusual? What do you mean?" "Their emissary said, 'You must marry a human.'" Kayla froze. Her hand tightened around the balcony railing. "A human?" "Yes, one of the neutral planet Solara's people. He is called Captain Joran. The Thaler insist that the marriage bind our peoples and force both sides to honor the truce." Kayla felt her stomach twist. Humans were weak, small, fragile. They were primitive, a species that had barely survived in their own system for centuries. How could the fate of two warring civilizations rest on a human? And why her? She was the Varelian princess, trained in diplomacy, war, and strategy. Yet here she was, asked to marry a human to save lives. She looked out at the sky. The stars were bright tonight, as if mocking her hesitation. Every choice had a cost. Refuse, and millions would die. Except, and she shuddered at the thought of her life bound to a human. "Prepare the starship," she said finally, her voice cold but resolute. "I will go to Solara. I will meet this." "Joran," Vorin bowed. "As you command, Princess." The journey to Solara was long. Kayla sat in the observation deck watching the stars streak past. She had never traveled with a human before. From what she knew, they were unpredictable, stubborn, and, most importantly, insignificant in battle. Yet the Thaler insisted this human held some importance, and the Varelians, desperate for peace, could not argue. When the ship landed on Solara, Kayla was greeted by Captain Joran himself. He was taller than she expected, his posture confident, but his eyes, they held a quiet strength. Dark hair framed a calm, sharp face, and his presence made her uneasy in ways she could not explain. "You must be Princess Kayla," he said, bowing slightly, a hint of respect in his voice. "I am honored to meet you." Kayla studied him carefully. "Captain Joran, I assume you understand why we are here." Joran nodded. "Yes, and I assume you are not thrilled about it." Kayla's lips twitched, almost forming a smile. "You assume correctly. Humans are unpredictable. I do not understand why the Thaler think this will work." Joran's smile was faint. "Maybe because sometimes humans do things that no one expects." Kayla blinked. His words annoyed her, though she could not deny a flicker of curiosity stirred inside her. She had spent her entire life surrounded by aliens who prized logic, strategy, and technology. Humans were different. Over the next days, Kayla observed Joran carefully. He moved with purpose, his eyes constantly scanning, analyzing, and learning. He spoke to his crew with patience and respect, yet he could make quick decisions in moments of crisis. He negotiated with Solara officials efficiently, never losing composure. Kayla was puzzled. "You are capable," she admitted one evening as they walked along a promenade on Solara. "I expected humans to be fragile, weak." Joran tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "We may be fragile in some ways, Princess, but we survive, we adapt. We find a way when no way exists. That is why we are still here." Kayla frowned. His words unsettled her. She had been trained to judge strength by power and numbers. But Joran's strength, it was different, quiet, determined, unyielding. Before she could dwell further, a message arrived from the Thalor. Their leaders were impatient. The wedding would be held on neutral ground, and all leaders expected attendance. Any delay could be interpreted as a betrayal, risking the collapse of peace. Kayla clenched her fists. The thought of marrying Joran was difficult enough. But she now understood another truth. The galaxy was not just watching. They were judging her every move. As their ship left Solara, Kayla felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Millions of lives rested on this alliance, and yet she could not shake the thought that there was more to Joran than met the eye. One night during the journey, alarms blared across the ship. Kayla rushed to the control room where Joran was already at the helm. "What is happening?" she demanded. "An ambush," Joran said calmly. "The Thaler radicals do not want peace. They think we will fail." Kayla's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I anticipated it," he said simply. "We need to maneuver quickly." The next minutes were chaotic. Alien ships swarmed around them, firing energy blasts that could tear a starship apart. Kayla braced herself, expecting panic, but Joran's hands moved with precision. He directed the crew with clear commands, dodging attacks in ways no Varelian pilot had ever imagined. Kayla found herself gripping the railing, astonished. This human was saving lives, and not with technology alone, but with intelligence, intuition, and bravery. After the ambush ended, Joran looked at her calmly. "We are safe, Princess." Kayla swallowed hard. You think like a general, yet you are human. How is this possible?" Joran shrugged. "Humans do what they must. We survive. That is enough for me." Kayla's anger, her skepticism, began to waver. She realized that this human was not weak. Far from it. He possessed a strength the galaxy had not seen before. That night, she stood alone on the observation deck, staring at the stars. The war, the peace, the marriage, all of it was complicated beyond her understanding. And yet, a tiny spark of curiosity grew inside her. Perhaps humans were not as simple as she had thought. Perhaps they held secrets no alien could imagine. The journey to ThalerPrime was tense. Princess Kayla and Captain Joran traveled through territories that were technically neutral, but in truth, still teeming with spies, saboteurs, and radicals from both sides. Kayla's green-blue eyes scanned the stars constantly, her mind calculating possible dangers. But despite all her vigilance, she couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease that had nothing to do with the war. It was something about Joran. He moved among the crew with an easy confidence that belied the danger around them. He spoke to the engineers as if they were equals, asked questions politely, yet decisively gave orders when needed. Kayla watched from her quarters as he solved a technical problem with the ship's navigation system in minutes, something she had been told would require 3 Varelian engineers, working for hours. "How do you do that?" she asked later, unable to hide her astonishment. Joran glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Humans look at problems differently. Sometimes the simple answer is the one that works." Kayla frowned. "Simple? You call this simple? We would have lost half the crew attempting what you just did." "Perhaps," Joran replied calmly, "but we survived. That's what matters." Kayla turned away, not because she doubted him, but because she realized she had underestimated humans entirely, and yet she refused to admit it. She was a princess, a warrior, and a diplomat. She could not let a human, no matter how capable, show her weakness. The next few days were filled with long travel, meetings with Solara officials, and tense encounters with scouts from the warring factions. Kayla noticed something remarkable. Joran seemed to thrive in situations where others faltered. When a Thalor scout ship shadowed their path, Kayla expected panic. Instead, Joran calmly predicted their maneuvers, outsmarting the scouts and leaving them confused. At one point, Kayla cornered him in the observation deck. "Explain yourself," she demanded. "How do you know what the Thalor will do before they do it?" Joran leaned against the railing, his dark eyes steady. "I observe, I learn, I anticipate. Humans have been surviving predators far deadlier than any Thaler for thousands of years. We learn to think ahead. It's instinct." Kayla was silent. Instinct. That was a human word, but Joran's instincts were beyond what she had ever seen from any alien strategist. Even the Varelians, masters of planning and foresight, would struggle against the ingenuity of this human. One evening, as the ship glided silently through a field of asteroids, alarms blared. Kayla rushed to the control room, where Joran was already at the helm. "What now?" she asked, her voice tight with tension. "Pirates," Joran said calmly. "They're trying to ambush us." Kayla's hand went to the sidearm at her belt. "I will help. We must protect the ship." Joran shook his head. Stay here. I have a plan. Kayla watched, a mix of frustration and curiosity rising in her chest as Joran directed the crew with precise commands. They twisted and turned through the asteroids, dodging energy blasts that would have destroyed any ordinary ship. Joran's movements were almost preternatural, predicting where danger would appear before it even happened. When the pirates finally gave up and fled, Kayla could only stare. You saved us, she said softly. Joran smiled faintly. We survived. That is all I aim for. Kayla realized then that this human was not only brave, he was extraordinary. But she also knew that acknowledging it fully might change the way she saw him, and that scared her. She was supposed to marry him to end a war, not admire him. The days passed, and the ship neared DEATHWORLD. During this time, Kayla began to see Joran not just as a capable human, but as a partner in navigating the impossible. He listened to her ideas, offered suggestions, and sometimes challenged her assumptions in ways that made her think. She hated that she was learning from a human, hated that she was starting to enjoy his company. One night she confronted him on the promenade outside their quarters. Tell me, Joran, she said quietly, do humans always surprise others this way? Or is it just you? Joran chuckled softly, looking at the distant stars. We are unpredictable. That's how we survive. And I'm not as surprising as you might think. You just haven't seen many humans in action, Kayla frowned. And you? Have you ever faced a challenge you could not overcome? Joran shook his head. Not yet. But every time I think I might fail, I find another way. Humans do not give up easily. And sometimes the impossible is only impossible until we try. Kayla felt something stir inside her. He spoke with conviction, but there was no arrogance in his voice. It was truth. A human truth. She had spent her life surrounded by aliens who measured power in ships, weapons, or wealth. But Joran measured strength in will, courage, and cleverness, and it terrified her in a way she did not understand. As they entered Thaler space, tension rose. Both sides had spies and radicals ready to disrupt the upcoming peace ceremony. Kayla felt the weight of history pressing down on her. Every move mattered. Every misstep could mean the death of thousands. And yet she realized something else. She could trust Joran, perhaps more than she could trust anyone else in the galaxy. During a briefing with Thaler officials, Kayla noticed the subtle fear in their eyes as Joran spoke. He proposed a neutral approach using logic and diplomacy rather than threats or intimidation. Yet behind his calm demeanor there was an unshakable confidence. The Thaler delegates hesitated, unsure whether to follow his plan or doubt him. Kayla saw it happen again and again. Joran's presence changed the room. Aliens who had never respected humans before now studied him, wary and curious. She could not deny it. He was extraordinary. That night, Kayla stood alone on the observation deck again, thinking. She hated that she felt admiration, even fascination. She hated that she began to wonder what it would be like to truly know this human. Yet a small part of her could not help but hope. The galaxy was a dangerous place. War was everywhere. But perhaps humans, this human, could survive and thrive where others failed. Perhaps humans had a power the aliens could never understand. And Kayla, despite herself, was beginning to see that the human sitting in the next room might not just save the peace. He might save the entire galaxy. The next day, as their ship approached the neutral planet where the wedding would take place, an urgent alert came from the outer communication array. Kayla rushed to the command center with Joran at her side. Princess, we have incoming ships, Joran said. Unknown, fast, they could be hostile. Kayla's heart raced. Prepare for defense. We cannot afford an attack now. Joran nodded, his eyes calm. We may not need to fight. Watch and learn. With a series of precise commands, he maneuvered the ship to a position that forced the unknown ships to veer off course. The potential threat passed without a single shot fired. Kayla stared at him astonished. You did it again, she said, almost in disbelief. Joran shrugged. Sometimes the best way to fight is not to fight at all. Kayla realized for the first time that this human was unlike any creature she had ever met. He was clever, brave, and unshakably calm. He could survive ambushes, anticipate danger, and negotiate with alien leaders, all without arrogance, without fear, without error, and Kayla, despite all her training, began to feel something she had never felt before. Trust. As the neutral planet came into view, Kayla could see the vast city prepared for their arrival. Ships from both the Virelian and Thalor fleets hovered in the skies, silent but ready. She felt a shiver of apprehension. The real challenge was about to begin, but now at least she was not facing it alone. Jaren stood at her side, quiet, confident, and ready. The neutral planet was a jewel among the stars, a sprawling world of crystal cities, floating gardens, and towering spires. It was chosen for its neutrality, for its beauty, and because no single species dominated it. But even this world could not mask the tension in the air. Princess Kayla gazed from the observation deck of the massive starport as fleets from both the Virelians and the Thalor hovered above. Energy shields shimmered across the sky, and warships bristled with weapons, silent threats waiting for the first spark. Every diplomat, every soldier, every spy was watching. And in the center of it all, she would marry a human. Kayla's heart pounded. She had traveled across hostile territories, dodged ambushes, and seen Joran's extraordinary abilities firsthand. She knew he was capable, brilliant, and courageous. And yet, standing here with thousands of eyes upon her, she could not stop her fear. The Thalor were unpredictable. Some radicals wanted the war to continue. Some Virelians doubted the alliance. One wrong move could ignite a conflict greater than any before. Jaren stepped beside her, his dark eyes calm and steady. "Princess," he said softly, "are you ready?" Kayla looked at him, studying his composed expression. She hated the flutter in her chest, hated that she felt a strange mix of fear and hope. "I suppose I have no choice," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Joran smiled faintly. "Choice is an illusion sometimes, but how we act within it, that is what matters." The ceremony hall was massive, a dome of shimmering crystal that reflected the light of distant suns. Delegates from both factions filled the seats, their faces a mixture of curiosity, suspicion, and barely contained hostility. The air was thick with tension, and Kayla felt it pressing down on her like a physical weight. When she stepped forward, adorned in Virelian ceremonial robes, she could feel the alien eyes upon her. She took a deep breath and walked toward the central platform, and there, waiting, was Joran. He stood tall, calm and utterly human, yet somehow commanding more respect than she had imagined possible. The officiant, a neutral elder from Solara, began the ceremony. Words were spoken in ancient dialects, promises exchanged, and the bindings of peace were formalized. Kayla's hand trembled slightly as she reached for Joran's. Then chaos erupted. A group of radical Virelians, loyal only to war and destruction, stormed the hall. Energy weapons flared and screams echoed across the crystal dome. Some Thalor radicals followed, hoping to turn the chaos into an advantage. The ceremony was suddenly a battlefield. Kayla froze, but Joran did not. "Move," he shouted, his voice clear and commanding. Kayla followed instinctively, trusting him as she had never trusted anyone. Joran's mind was sharp, anticipating every move of the attackers. He directed the guards, used the architecture of the hall to create barriers, and guided Kayla and the delegates to safety. Kayla watched, astonished. This human, who she had been prepared to marry reluctantly, was saving the lives of thousands. Not with overwhelming force, not with alien technology, but with intelligence, strategy, and courage. When the last attacker was disarmed or fled, silence fell. The delegates, once hostile, now stared at Joran with awe and fear. He was not a simple human. He was something entirely different, something no alien had expected. Kayla's chest tightened. She had seen courage before, but this was extraordinary. Her heart raced, but now with admiration, not fear. After the chaos, Kayla and Joran returned to the platform. The officiant continued the ceremony, though more cautiously now. Kayla noticed that the delegates' expressions had changed. Where there was suspicion before, there was now respect. Where there was doubt, there was curiosity. Kayla looked at Joran. How do you stay so calm?" she asked softly. Joran met her gaze. "Because panic solves nothing. I think, I act, and I adapt. Humans survive by adapting." Kayla nodded, feeling a strange warmth. For the first time, she saw not only a human before her, but a partner, someone who could stand beside her, not just as a husband by contract, but as an equal in strength and wisdom. The ceremony continued without further interruption. Though Kayla knew the war was far from over, the radicals would regroup. The factions would still harbor hatred. But in that moment, she felt hope. a fragile, precious hope that perhaps peace could exist. The celebrations afterward were cautious. Delegates mingled under watchful eyes, trying to maintain decorum. Kayla observed Joran quietly, noting how he spoke to each alien with respect yet never compromised his own position. He negotiated, diffused tension, and subtly demonstrated strategies that impressed even the most skeptical leaders. Kayla's mind raced. She had been trained to lead, to fight, and to negotiate, and yet in every situation she found herself learning from him. This human, she realized, had a power no alien could imagine. Not strength, not weapons, but something far more potent, the ability to inspire, to adapt, and to unite. Later, as they walked through the palace gardens, Kayla could not help but speak. Joran, I did not expect any of this. You are not just capable, you are remarkable. Joran chuckled softly. Remarkable? I am just a human, princess. You and your people see humans as weak, but we endure. We survive, we adapt. That is our strength. Kayla's lips pressed into a thin line. You make it sound so simple. Simple is enough when it works, Joran replied, a faint smile on his face. And it always works if you refuse to give up. Kayla shook her head both in disbelief and admiration. She had underestimated humans all her life, and now, standing beside this one, she realized just how wrong she had been. But even as peace seemed within reach, danger still lingered. Kayla received a private message from the Varelian High Council. A faction within their ranks, enraged by the marriage and the peace, planned to strike again. They would use the cover of celebration to assassinate key delegates and possibly her. Kayla's green-blue eyes narrowed. Joran, there is more to this than the radicals we just faced. They are planning something. Joran's expression remained calm. I anticipated as much. Let them come. We will be ready. Kayla's heart quickened. Ready? How? They have fleets, weapons, numbers. Joran's gaze was steady. They have strategy too, princess. But so do we. And humans. Humans think differently. That gives us an edge. Kayla swallowed hard. She felt a strange combination of fear and confidence. She had never trusted anyone so fully. And yet, with Joran, she did. The next morning, as the wedding celebrations continued cautiously, a shadow fell over the palace. Kayla felt it before she saw it. An unnatural silence, the absence of chatter among the guards, the sense that something was wrong. Joran, she whispered, grabbing his arm. They're here, he nodded. Stay close. Trust me. Within moments, chaos erupted once again. This time it was a coordinated attack. Ships in orbit firing energy beams at the palace and squads of radicals teleporting inside. Delegates screamed, alarms blared, and the fragile peace teetered on the edge of collapse. Kayla felt fear grip her, but she did not panic. She moved with Joran, following his precise instructions. He positioned guards, guided civilians, and countered attacks with a combination of tactics and intuition that left her in awe. The radicals, expecting to overpower humans and aliens alike, were stunned. Joran seemed to anticipate every move, every strike, every trap. He was everywhere at once, though he was only one man, and Kayla realized that his true power was not strength alone, but something far more terrifying to their enemies: his mind. When the attack finally ended, silence fell over the palace. The delegates looked at Joran in stunned amazement. Some whispered rumors of human power, others simply stared, unsure what they had witnessed. Kayla's heart raced, her admiration now fully realized. She looked at him, her green-blue eyes reflecting awe and respect. You are extraordinary, she said, voice trembling. Joran gave a small, humble shrug. I am just a human, princess. But humans? We do what we must. That is enough for me. Kayla felt something shift inside her. The human she had been sent to marry to end a war had not only saved her life and the lives of countless others. He had shown her a power no alien could imagine. The palace was quiet now, but the tension lingered like a thick fog. The attack during the wedding had ended, but its effects rippled through every hall, every corridor, every mind. Delegates from both the Varelians and the Thaler whispered among themselves, eyes darting toward the human who had single-handedly countered an ambush that could have killed hundreds. Princess Kayla watched him from a distance, her green-blue eyes reflecting awe and worry. Captain Joran moved through the palace with calm authority, issuing precise instructions to guards, checking on the injured, and speaking with diplomats as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. But Kayla knew better. He had done the impossible. He had saved the peace, and the galaxy had noticed. The following day, a council meeting was held to address the attacks. The Thalor delegates sat stiffly, arms crossed, eyes filled with suspicion and fear. The Varelians were equally tense, some secretly resentful of Kayla's choice to marry a human. Kayla stepped forward. "We must maintain peace," she said, her voice steady. "We cannot allow radicals to dictate the fate of our civilizations." Joran spoke next. His voice was calm, measured, and commanding. "We survived yesterday because we adapted. We thought ahead. We worked together. That is the only way we will endure. Not with fear, not with hatred, but with understanding and strategy." The delegates exchanged glances. Some nodded hesitantly. Others frowned, unsure what to make of this human who seemed unshakable. Kayla felt a swell of pride, though she would never admit it aloud, that the man beside her had not only saved lives but earned respect without weapons, without intimidation, without force. Later, Kayla and Joran walked through the palace gardens away from the eyes of the council. She studied him carefully. "You were incredible yesterday," she said softly. "No alien could have done what you did." Joran smiled faintly. "I did what was necessary. Humans survive by thinking differently, by adapting, by not following the rules others set for us. That's our edge," Kayla frowned. "Edge? You make it sound so natural, but the aliens, they are terrified of you." He looked at her calmly. "Good, let them be. Fear can be useful, but respect is better. Show them what humans can do, not with threats, but with action, with intelligence, with courage." Kayla's chest tightened. She realized that humans were underestimated across the galaxy, and she realized something else. She was beginning to respect and maybe even admire Joran more than she should. The next crisis came sooner than expected. A faction of Thalor radicals, unwilling to accept the peace, launched a coordinated attack on the palace from orbit. Their ships formed a deadly grid, energy weapons aimed at the city below. The council erupted in panic. Kayla felt a wave of fear. "Joran, they will destroy everything." Joran remained calm. "We have prepared for this. Trust me." He moved quickly through the command center, directing ships, rerouting energy shields, and issuing instructions that made Kayla's head spin. His strategies were unconventional, yet perfectly logical. He anticipated the enemy's movements, countered attacks before they happened, and coordinated defenders in ways no alien commander could have imagined. Kayla watched, her green-blue eyes wide. This was more than bravery. This was genius. From the observation deck, Kayla could see Joran in action. He was everywhere at once, though he was only one man. His mind moved faster than any Varelian strategist she had ever met. He improvised when plans failed, adapted when new threats appeared, and used human intuition to predict outcomes that no alien technology could calculate. For the first time, Kayla understood the full scope of human potential. Humans were not strong like Varelians, not technologically superior like Thalor, but humans were unpredictable, clever, adaptable, and Joran was the perfect example of what humans could achieve when pushed to their limits. The attack ended within hours. Not a single civilian was lost, and most of the attackers' ships were disabled or forced to retreat. The council and delegates were stunned. Whispers spread throughout the palace. The human had done what the combined fleets of two civilizations could not. Kayla's admiration for Joran grew into awe. He had unveiled a power no alien could have imagined. Not magic, not technology, but human ingenuity, adaptability, and willpower. That evening, Kayla confronted him privately in her chambers. "Joran, yesterday, today, you are extraordinary. How can one human achieve so much?" He leaned against the window, gazing at the stars. "I am not extraordinary. I just do what humans have always done. We survive, we adapt. We find a way when no one else can. That is our edge. And sometimes, that edge is enough to change the course of history." Kayla felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had trained her entire life to lead, to fight, to negotiate, and yet she found herself learning from him, learning to see the world differently, to think differently, to hope differently, and she realized something terrifying and exhilarating. She had begun to admire him deeply, not just as a human, but as a man. The next day, Joran addressed the council again. His calm authority and clear thinking impressed even the most skeptical delegates. He proposed solutions to disputes, devised strategies to protect neutral planets, and showed a vision of cooperation that no alien had ever suggested. Kayla watched him, proud and amazed. She saw the way his mind worked, how he could unite factions through logic, insight, and human ingenuity. The delegates could no longer ignore him. Some began to follow his lead, some still doubted, but all had to respect his abilities. After the council adjourned, Kayla and Joran walked through the palace gardens again. The sun cast long shadows, and Kayla felt the weight of the galaxy's hopes pressing on her. You are changing everything," she said softly. "Even the aliens are beginning to see humans differently." Joran shrugged. "They will learn, Princess. Humans have always been underestimated, and when we show them what we can do, well, they are usually surprised." Kayla smiled faintly, a mixture of admiration and something deeper she would not yet name. I am beginning to understand that, but it is more than surprising, it is inspiring." Joran turned to her, dark eyes calm. "That is the human edge, Kayla. Not strength, not weapons, not power, but hope, ingenuity, will, and sometimes courage to act when no one else will." Kayla nodded, her chest tightening. She had thought she was marrying a human to end a war. But now she realized that she was standing beside a force that could change the galaxy. Days passed and peace began to stabilize. Delegates slowly began to trust one another, inspired by Joran's leadership and example. Kayla watched him, learning, admiring, and slowly understanding that humans were capable of far more than anyone had ever imagined. One night, as they stood on the observation deck together, Kayla finally allowed herself to speak what she had been thinking for days. "Joran, when I agreed to marry you, I thought it was a duty, a way to end a war. I did not expect any of this. I did not expect to see what humans are capable of, and I did not expect to admire you so much." Joran looked at her quietly, a faint, understanding smile on his face. "Kayla, you admire what humans can do because it is rare for aliens to see it. But you do not need to admire me. You need only see the truth. Humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans survive. And when we are pushed, we find a way." Kayla's heart beat faster. She had expected duty. She had expected compromise. She had not expected inspiration. She had not expected hope. And she had not expected to see the extraordinary power of humanity embodied in one man standing beside her. For the first time in her life, Kayla realized something important. The galaxy was not ready for humans. Not yet, but through Joran it would learn. And when it did, the universe would never be the same. The galaxy had changed. For decades, the Virelians and the Thalor had been locked in war, their hatred so deep that peace had seemed impossible. Yet here they were on a neutral planet, negotiating, speaking, and working together under the guidance of one human and the Virelian princess who had married him. Princess Kayla walked through the council chambers, observing the delegates. Some were still wary, their expressions cautious, but many had begun to follow her lead. And everywhere, eyes turned to Captain Joran. Even those who had doubted him before now looked with curiosity, respect, and in some cases, awe. Kayla's green-blue eyes met Joran's across the room. He stood quietly, surveying the room with calm confidence. No alien technology, no overwhelming fleet had done what he had done. But through strategy, courage, and human ingenuity, he had united factions that had fought for centuries. Kayla felt pride swelling within her, not just because of duty fulfilled, but because of the man standing beside her. Joran had done what she never could have imagined, and in doing so he had shown her and the galaxy the extraordinary potential of humanity. The council meeting began. Joran addressed the delegates first, his voice steady, commanding attention without force. "Peace is not achieved by weapons," he said. "It is achieved by understanding, by cooperation, and by courage. The galaxy has seen what humans can do when pushed to the edge. We do not surrender. We do not panic. And we do not give up." Some delegates whispered among themselves. Others nodded slowly. Kayla noticed a shift in the room, a subtle recognition that humans underestimated for centuries could be a force unlike any other. Joran continued. We have survived countless challenges by adapting, by thinking differently, and by working together. The same principles can guide the galaxy. Humans are not stronger than you. We are not smarter than you, but we endure. And endurance, when combined with courage and intelligence, can overcome anything. Kayla felt a chill. Every word he spoke resonated with truth, not just strategy. Even the most stubborn Thaler delegates could not ignore it. After the council, Kayla and Joran walked through the palace gardens, where the sunlight cast golden shadows across the crystal paths. She had begun to see him not only as a human but as a partner, a leader, and an inspiration. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "Not just the peace, but the way every alien sees humans. They will never underestimate us again." Joran smiled faintly. "They will try, of course. That is how it always is. But humans? We thrive in the unexpected. That is our power." Kyla's chest tightened. She had come to marry a human to end a war, expecting duty, protocol, and ceremony. She had found something entirely different. She had found hope, courage, and a man whose presence could inspire civilizations. "You are extraordinary," she whispered. "I have never met anyone like you." Joran's dark eyes met hers. "Nor have I ever met anyone like you, Kayla. You saw beyond what I am, beyond what humans are, and you helped guide this change. Together, we can shape the future." Kayla nodded, a sense of warmth spreading through her chest. The galaxy had survived the war, but it was just the beginning. Over the next months, Joran and Kayla worked tirelessly to unify the warring factions. The human captain introduced methods that were unheard of among aliens: collaboration across species, adaptive problem-solving, and conflict resolution through strategy and dialogue instead of brute force. Some alien leaders resisted. They feared human ingenuity and unorthodox methods. But Joran's calm confidence, his ability to anticipate their moves, and his unwavering courage gradually won them over. Even the most skeptical delegates began to respect him, not because he threatened them, but because he showed results that no one else could. Kayla observed him during meetings, negotiations, and patrols of the fleets. She realized that humans' greatest strength was not power, size, or technology. It was adaptability. And Joran embodied that strength fully. One afternoon, as they observed a training exercise with combined Varelian and Thalor crews, Kayla spoke quietly to Joran. "The galaxy is beginning to understand humans. But I wonder, will they ever truly grasp our potential?" Joran smiled faintly. "Some will, some won't. But they do not need to fully understand. They only need to see results. And results are undeniable." Kayla nodded. She watched the crews maneuver their ships, following Joran's guidance, and realized how far the galaxy had come in just a few months. What had begun as a fragile peace now showed signs of stability. Humans, through one man, had become a beacon of hope. Night fell on the neutral planet. Kayla and Joran stood on the observation deck together, gazing at the stars. The fleets of the Varelians and Thalor glimmered in the sky, no longer poised for destruction, but ready to patrol, protect, and maintain peace. "You have done more than I could have imagined," Kayla said softly. "I married you to end a war, not to change the galaxy." Joran looked at her, dark eyes reflecting starlight. "You married me not just to end a war, Kayla. You married me because the galaxy needed hope. Humans provide hope not because of strength or weapons, but because we endure, we adapt, and we act when no one else can. And together, we have given the galaxy that chance." Kayla's heart swelled. She realized she did not just admire him. She trusted him, relied on him, and perhaps more than anything, she had come to care deeply for him. I believe in you," she whispered. "And in humans. Perhaps for the first time, I truly understand what we are capable of." Joran's hand brushed hers. A quiet acknowledgement, a promise. "And I believe in you, Kayla. Together we can ensure this peace lasts. Together we can show the galaxy what humans and unity can achieve." The months that followed saw remarkable change. Trade routes reopened, neutral planets joined the alliance, and factions that had fought for centuries began to cooperate. Kayla and Joran traveled across the sector, mediating disputes, demonstrating strategies, and inspiring hope. Aliens who had once mocked humans now watched with respect. Scientists studied human problem-solving. Military leaders analyzed Joran's tactics, and diplomats learned that negotiation, adaptability, and courage could achieve what weapons could not. Kayla often reflected on their journey. She had married a human out of duty, expecting compromise and protocol. Instead, she had gained a partner, a leader, and a man whose courage and ingenuity could change the fate of the galaxy. One day, as they stood overlooking a bustling spaceport, Kayla turned to Joran. The galaxy sees humans differently now. But do you think they understand? Truly understand? Joran shook his head. Perhaps not fully. But they will respect us. And that is enough. Humans have always been underestimated, and we have always proven them wrong. Kayla smiled faintly, feeling a warmth in her chest that went beyond duty or respect. And you have proven that even one human can make a difference. Joran's dark eyes softened. And you, Kayla, have shown that humans can inspire even the most skeptical of aliens. Together, we can achieve more than either of us imagined. The sun set over the crystal city, casting long shadows across the spires. Kayla and Joran stood side by side, watching the fleets of Virelians and Thaler patrol the skies in harmony. The galaxy was still fragile, still full of challenges, but it had hope, a fragile, brilliant hope that humans with their adaptability, ingenuity, and courage could guide the way. Kayla turned to Joran. I married you to end a war. But now, I see that we have done more than that. We have changed the galaxy. Joran smiled faintly, taking her hand. And we will continue to change it, Kayla. Together. The stars above twinkled like diamonds, silent witnesses to a new era. An era where humans were no longer underestimated. An era where courage, ingenuity, and adaptability could unite civilizations that had once known only war. And Princess Kayla, standing beside Captain Joran, realized that she had married more than a human. She had married hope. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, had a chance to thrive. The galaxy had survived war. It had endured fear. And now, with humans and one extraordinary human leading the way, it had the chance to flourish. Kayla and Joran stood together, ready to face whatever challenges the stars might bring, knowing that humanity's true power had only just begun to be understood. The galaxy would never be the same again.